Hey you, it's CovertGo2, and Wizards has released more spoilers and more information about Shadows over Innistrad Remastered, including a card that wasn't in the set Shadows over Innistrad Remastered or Eldritch Moon that they're just gonna throw in, and it's gonna be historic legal, and it's gonna get banned, because this is what they do. Hear about the wild card scam here first. All right, let's dive right into it. These are all from a video that is on the Magic the Gathering main channel, weekly MTG Shadows over Innistrad Remastered previews. And here's a little information about the set before we actually read the cards, although there's some cards right there to distract you so you don't actually listen to my words. So they said that this is all coming from Blake in this video, by the way. They said that with Shadows over Innistrad Remastered, 95% of the cards that were registered in Pro Tour 1 this year, which was a Pioneer Pro Tour, are now on Arena. That means Explorer, with the cards from Shadows over Innistrad Remastered, now has 95% of what is currently considered competitive Pioneer. So for those of you who are Pioneer fans, you're close. Now, a couple of cards can make a big difference in a format, but you're close. You're getting there. Where's your World Spine Worm? Am I right? Where's your Xenagos? Let's get it done. And Blake did say that the team is working on that too. So the goal of these remastered sets, at first I thought the goal was, you know, when they were coming out every, like, at least once a year and maybe quicker, was to get every freaking Magic card on Arena someday, which is a hell of a goal and would be awesome. Now they're saying it's built around trying to get towards competitive Pioneer. They also hinted that this was the last block that the current Arena team had already put work into, and they decided to finish it. Does that mean there won't be remastered sets in the future? Or does it mean they're just going to stop this chronological moving backwards kind of progress and maybe jump around? Maybe finally give us the retro experience that I always thought Arena would be amazing for, such as, let's just do original Ravnica. Forget waiting like 15 years till we would work our way back to it. Let's just do it. Let's just throw Time Spiral out there and let people experience old and broken. Heck, let's go alpha. Let's do some of these things, you know. Maybe that's what they have in the works. I hope so. Anyway, we're going to continue talking about the cards that they've revealed that are coming in Shadows over Innistrad Remastered. Also, because I keep getting this question and it shows up in comments and I keep getting messages and Twitter is talking about it. No, these are not standard legal. I think I say this enough in these videos. This is historic and historic brawl legal, and you can draft it if you buy into the drafts. So that's what this is really all about. And it's very much for Explorer and trying to make Explorer into Pioneer so that there's a real Pioneer format on Magic Arena. Clear? Savvy? My main focus on these cards is Historic Brawl. That's my jam. And we're looking at two legendary creatures right up front in white. Odric Lunarch Marshal is keyword soup. I'm not reading all that. Basically, each combat creatures you control gain all these abilities if any other creatures have these abilities. So you want to get a whole bunch of the different creatures and use this. It also goes very well in decks with a lot of creatures with keywords. If you put this in Atraxa at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have this in your Atraxa, all your creatures gain all that, at least First Strike, Death Touch, Lifelink, and Vigilance. That's not too bad. I think some people will enjoy playing this card. It's really not for me. And then there's Thalia Heretic Cathar. I mean, that is a heck of a nasty card. That is definitely not for me, but people will definitely play. A decent commander, maybe not as good as the other Thalia, depending on your meta, but just a really good white aggro creature card that will go into a bunch of aggro-leaning decks. Then also Legends Matter, probably going to play this just to slow the opponents down. I mean, that clause, it's soon to be outclassed by Thalia plus the Gitrog monster, right? But that can't go in every deck, and Thalia Heretic Cathar can go into every white deck. This card is very mean. Well, that's very convenient how I left that up there. Anyway, I wonder if I did that for all of these. Probably. Let's go. In black, they revealed Tree of Perdition and Triskaidectophobia. Neither of these are particularly competitive or scary cards that you'll see often, but if you like the number 13, both of these cards kind of play into that theme, which was the, like, doing creepy stuff with 13 is a very Innistrad type thing. It's also just very exciting to do, exchanging life totals and little like mini games like that. Next up, we have Hanweir Garrison, Hanweir Battlements, and Hanweir the Writhing Township. This is a meld card, or meld set of cards. Now, sometimes you end up melding the Garrison. It's a perfectly fine card. It's kind of like a Legion War Boss, a little Legion War Boss to it. But what is actually a really good addition to a number of red decks is Hanweir Battlements, just a land that is a haste enabler. If you have something like a Delina Wild Mage or some other red commander that you definitely want to have haste, Annex Harden in the Forge, for example, Hanweir Battlements is a really good inclusion in your mana base. And I'm sure it also probably goes fine in a deck like Winota if you have room for the colorless requirements and things of that nature. In green, Eldritch Evolution is a card we covered yesterday. Tireless Tracker is a card that's already on Arena through one of the anthologies. Cryptolith Rite is a terrifying card. 1 and a green enchantment. Creatures you control have tap to add 1 mana of any color. And don't worry, this isn't the card that I'm saying will get banned. We'll get to it. But Cryptolith Rite is a pretty crazy little card. And in token decks, like the amount of mana that this can generate is insane. And yeah, there's a number of decks that want to play it. I don't play those decks that often, but basically, are you the type of deck that has 3 or more creatures on the battlefield a lot? You probably like Cryptolith Rite. It probably fits right into your strategy. Next up, we have Anguished Unmaking, Fevered Visions, and Olivia Mobilized for War. Olivia will go great in the vampire-type theme decks or as a vampire-type commander. There are so many now from Crimson Vow that you can do all kinds of things with vampires. Fevered Visions is one of my all-time favorite Magic cards, mostly because of Magic Duels, where I played it in way too many decks. It's a very sweet card that says at the beginning of each player's end step, that player draws a card. If a player is your opponent and has 4 or more cards in hand, they take 2 damage. So you get an extra draw. You also get it at the beginning of your end step, so you don't have to wait till your next turn to get it, which is an important thing. And then the opponent starts taking damage. So, you know, picture this with Shieldred. Stuff like that. Really fun. There are all kinds of decks that might want to play this, and they should. It's a really fun card. And then we have Anguished Unmaking, a really solid black and white removal spell. Simple card from a simpler time. 1 and a white and a black instant. Exile target non-land permanent. You lose 3 life. I believe this was actually a rare. This is showing it as an uncommon in this particular set, so that's a nice little downshift in rarity, I believe, for Anguished Unmaking, and that's nice to see. Archangel Avacyn is a card we discussed in yesterday's video, and it has now been confirmed. This will be in the set. Not much surprise. This card is sweet. Can't wait to build with it. Then we get into some commons. Avacyn's Pilgrim is coming to MTG Arena and Historic. Every deck that uses creatures and plays the colors green and white should play Avacyn's Pilgrim. It's another cheap mana dork. Chulane will love this. Lagrella will love this. All of them will love this. It's really great that it's fixing on a mana dork, because if you do have a deck like Lagrella, which is classic, Bant in the casting cost of the commander, then a Llanowar Elf can sometimes get you, unless you're casting it off something like a Breeding Pool. Sometimes having double green doesn't help you. But with Avacyn's Pilgrim, you actually get that mana fix for that turn 2 Lagrella or turn 2 Shauna, for example. Doom Traveler was already here. Don't know what we're excited about. But here's an interesting thing about Faithless Looting. If you haven't crafted this card yet, this card was a rare in the Mystical Archive, and it is a common here in Shadows over Innistrad Remastered. So if you haven't crafted your Faithless Lootings, and if you have, congratulations. Nice stiff middle finger there, but I'm sure it wasn't intentional. I'm sure this is actually righting a wrong. They shouldn't be reprinting commons as rares because they turned out to be powerful and then getting rares out of us. They should be printing them in something like the rarity. Downshifts are fine. Upshifts are kind of nasty. And I know sometimes they do that for the limited experience, etc. But Faithless Looting wasn't upshifted for the limited experience of Strixhaven, guys. It just wasn't, right? I don't think it was. I mean, you can argue that if you want to, but like Brainstorm and frickin' Faithless Looting as rares, yeah. So anyway, if you haven't crafted a Faithless Looting yet, craft this one. It's common as opposed to a rare wild card. Just something worth noting. Then the next one that we have is Lingering Souls, and this is a card that was so powerful in its time. It was played in Modern in its time. It's probably been outmoded, but I think most black and white decks are going to want to try it, especially if they're doing any kind of a token strategy. So yeah, graveyard strategy also, just the flashback, very cheap, make some spirits. A lot of us remember Lingering Souls. We love Lingering Souls. The Mayor of Avabrook is coming to Shadows over Innistrad Remastered. Now, is this where we transition here to the sheet? Yeah, I already missed it. So this is the symbol for the Shadows over Innistrad Remastered set. We have now moved into cards that were not in Shadows over Innistrad. This is the, quote, bonus sheet. And apparently every week there's going to be a sheet of cards that is introduced into the format for drafting. And then they're going to change it next week. And these will be cards from the original Innistrad sets, which are modern legal. These cards will be craftable, and they will be historic legal on Arena. They will not be legal in formats other than historic and historic brawl on Arena. Hope that was clear. So these cards are going to be craftable for Historic Brawl. I don't know if you will be able to craft cards from sheets that aren't being used currently in the draft each week, or if every week we get a new sheet and then we'll be able to craft it. I think the latter would make more sense. So in theory, we might see all the previews for Shadows over Innistrad Remastered and then still receive more relevant cards for Historic Brawl in the weeks following. Could happen. Probably will, quite honestly. So yeah, Avacyn's Pilgrim's the good one. Lingering Soul's the good one. Let's get into the rare. The Mayor of Avabrook. This is a werewolf-centric card. If you have a werewolf type deck, you know, in Historic Brawl, this card goes right in it. This card, the first competitive, and by competitive I mean Friday Night Magic, so whatever, but the first like match of Standard I played after coming back to the game after a very long absence, my first really long absence, my opponent played this card and my head just spun. I hadn't seen a double-sided card before, and I remember we missed so many triggers, and I read the card probably 6 times, and my opponent was like a 14-year-old kid, so probably looking at me like a grandpa, and I just read this card over and over trying to figure out what it did. Anyway, Falkenrath Aristocrat, Havengold Lich are 2 of the mythics on the first sheet. This Falkenrath Aristocrat is amazing for vampires and sacrifice decks. A very, very sweet card that will see plenty of Historic Brawl play in those archetypes. Havengold Lich, I don't know. It's like the Scarab God is, in my opinion, a lot better. It's a very strange card. 3 and a blue and a black and a 4/4 zombie wizard, and one generic. You may cast a creature card from in a graveyard this turn. When you cast it, the Lich gains all activated abilities of that card until the end of the turn. It doesn't exile the card. There are some advantages over Scarab God, but it's so much less resilient. Gaining activated abilities, I mean, maybe somewhere that's a thing that's good. I don't know. There it is. There it is. They're putting Griselbrand into Historic and Historic Brawl. This card is banned in Commander. There are always more ways to cheat out Griselbrand, and we might not have like 1 mana like Reanimate and Animate Dead in these formats yet, but people find a way. They will cheat out the Griselbrand, and then they will pay their life, and they will draw a whole bunch of cards. And I know Commander has 40 life. I mean, is this really gonna make it in Historic Brawl and Historic? People's gonna find a way to break it. They do. That's what they do. Anyway, this card in Historic Brawl is going to be exciting, so we're probably going to play that ASAP. And I don't know, man. It's got basically some kind of Reanimator decks in this are gonna go nuts. And yeah, can Griselbrand just survive on Arena? Maybe Historic is too fast of a format and there's not enough cheap reanimation jutsu for this to matter. And maybe Historic Brawl is just not a format that they particularly care about. I would not be surprised if this is banned in Historic Brawl on day 1. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's banned in Historic Brawl like 6 months from now or a year from now. But at some point, I just don't expect the Grizz to make it. It's no one demon should have all that power. The last card that they revealed is Snapcaster Mage, one of the most popular blue creatures of all time. 1 in a blue, 2/1 flash human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery in your graveyard gains flashback. The flashback cost is equal to the mana cost. Any deck that is playing Opt, Brainstorm, those cheap cards, Consider, is probably going to consider running a Snapcaster Mage. It will probably have big impact in Historic. It's great with counterspells, things like that. It's also really good in Historic Brawl. The first decks I think of are Barrel and Baral. I say Barrel, it sounds too much like Brawl. But anyway, you know who I mean, Baral. And also the Rusko. Like, I think Rusko will absolutely love this card. It just has 2 examples. So if you have a spell-wielding deck in Historic Brawl, this card probably goes right in. So those are some sweet reveals and some chatter from this video, the TLDR version of this hour and 50 minutes. Hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoy Shadows over Innistrad Remastered. You're cool.